Dillon Ventske.
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the Iron Sights podcast.
Thank you for having me.
My
it's awesome
dude.
to be here.
Thanks for being patient with the setup here and driving all the way in from your location to be here with me today. I'm super stoked.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's awesome. Never done one of these, so we'll see how it goes.
That's first time for everything. It's funny. People come onto the show and they're like, they're all nervous and whatever. You've been very cool, calm, collected. I wouldn't have expected any different out of you, but I know how kind of the nerves can kind of get rattled. So
it's the lights.
I know it's a little obnoxious, isn't it?
No, it is, but if it makes us look better, that's what matters.
Yeah, that's all that matters. I mean, looking good is 98% of all this. So right now we are sitting in Scottsdale, Arizona. We are at the Elite U training facility. This place is awesome. Thanks to Ruben, the owner here, for setting us up. And we happen to be sitting in a section of the gym that Dan, the hitman Moret, uses to train some clients.
Yep.
He's offered it up for us today, so we're kind of sitting here. So if you're out there watching, that's where we are right now. It's a little bit of a different set. And we're on the headsets, and there's stuff happening. There's some pro athletes out in the other room training right now. They're hooting and hollering. So if you hear that in the background, that's what's up.
It's a real place.
Yeah.
Work is getting done.
That's an interesting thing. And we're going to have Dan on later, but you know what? I've been in this business a long time. When you walk into a place, in the coaching business, you can immediately within seconds, just know this is a very professional facility.
Yep.
They mean business here. They like to have a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, it's about making athletes better, getting them better, and sending them on their way. It's a cool group of folks here. So thanks again to Ruben here.
Yeah,
It's
very nice, very professional, respectful. It was just awesome walking in here right off the bat.
It's clean, like everybody's friendly clients. You can feel it's a good vibe.
Yeah.
So if you're in Scottsdale, come check out Elite U over on the north side here. It's awesome. Let's jump right into this, man.
All right.
So here's the thing. So I knew I was coming out here, and for a long time, I've been trying to get with a few folks from the Rogue Methods crew.
Right.
And you happen to be one of those guys. Raul Martinez has been extremely elusive with me. And one of these days, I'm going to wrangle him and we're going to make it happen. But, when I talked to him this year, I was like, I really would like to get with your guys to talk to them about the place that you guys are coming from and understand who the characters and the individuals are within the group.
Right.
Because I have really been impressed with the business model, how it's been handled. But more importantly, I had an opportunity to train with some of the guys in the past, and then be an onlooker to see some of the training that was happening. And it's unique. And I think what makes it very unique, I don't think you can put those two words together, very and unique, but I think what makes it unique is the people behind it,
right,
and kind of their backgrounds and where they've come from. So that's why you're here today. Raul graciously offered you up.
Here's my lamb.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a big part with Raul, right? Is our team is about our values, our morals, and then people whose heart is true. So like everybody on the team, their reason for being here is they legit just want to help. We try to avoid anybody with egos because we don't need that. That doesn't help anyone. Mm-hmm. So it's about just be humble, have strong morals, values, family, be what a man's supposed to be. And
sounds like a simple formula.
It really is.
I know. It seems like a simple formula, but so often we come across people that really struggle in those different aspects of being ethical, being moral,
Absolutely.
Wanting to help, providing value without some level of or sort of expectation on the back end. This is a business at the end of the day. But yeah, and I just think people have a little bit of a tough time balancing that against the other things.
Well, for us, for our team, we're family. It's a family. It's and you have to fit into the family to be on the team, and that I really feel like just being the honesty and stuff is just honest, and strong values is really what sets us apart. That's the formula.
I would agree. And I think if you've ever felt that feeling, that feeling. And that's kind of how I, approach life and business as well. You got to keep your circle pretty tight, and you have to be, if you're a leader, and hopefully what I've seen in those circles is that you're empowered to be a leader. You're very critical, but not in a gatekeepy kind of way. And I think that's actually gotten a negative term. But let me say this. You have to be very careful about who you let into your circle, because
Yes.
people can be it can be very cancerous to the vibe, right? And to the
Absolutely.
culture. And I think that's one of the interesting things, again, which is why I wanted to talk to you about you in general, to find out more about you
Okay.
and how you kind of wound up in this thing, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things, but let's just kind of, I'll stop right there and just kind of go back. Like, I'm just going to ask this question. Well, maybe it's not even a question. From what I've gathered from you from the outside looking in, and I've never trained with you, we've never been on the range together or on the
Right.
mats together or anything like that, is that you're just a dude that loves to shoot.
That is honestly, that is the best way. That is the best way of putting it. I love shooting. I love guns, and I mean it's my favorite pastime. So if I can make my favorite pastime, if I can help others just by doing something I love to do, why not do it?
I think that's the dream, right? That everybody wants and says they want to do. It's also work, at the end of the day. That saying of, do the thing you love for work and you'll never work another day in your life. That it's bullshit. Like it's total bullshit for those out there that have been following that little saying. You'll find out real fast if you really do that. But let's start back in the beginning. Like, how did this start for you? Like, tell me a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up? Like,
Yeah, well,
how'd you get here?
I'm just gonna start from like when I was like that big.
Start wherever you
All
want.
right.
You can finish wherever you want. You just have to be. This is what I tell all my guests. You have to be patient with me because I might interrupt or time out to get some detail on some of that stuff
fine.
as we go.
That's fine. Okay, so yeah, a bit about me. Dillon Ventske. I grew up in California, actually. I grew up in Southern California, Canyon Country, Valencia area.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I grew up out there, and my dad is a big shooter. So he was a champ back in the day for sporting clays and skeet and trap and anything to do with the shotgun. If it flied, it died.
Okay.
My dad was a phenomenal shooter, so I grew up with guns. When I was 4 years old, I remember my dad crushing Pepsi cans and stuff, and I had my little Red Ryder BB gun, and he'd throw them up in the air, and then I'd shoot the can, and that's what we did every night when I was with my dad. And so that just developed my passion for guns. When I was 5 years old, I had my first shotgun. I was out there duck hunting with my dad.
Awesome.
It was this little single shot 410. It was awesome. My dad had to have the barrel cut and the stock cut and everything for me to fit my little body.
Mm-hmm.
And so just grew up with it. And because my dad did that, we had all the pistols, we had rifles. My dad would love varmint hunting, deer hunting, anything like that. So grew up with guns. As a kid and going into my teenage years, like I knew how to handle a pistol, but I used to shoot like Weaver stance,
Mm-hmm.
and we go to the range and could shoot and all that. But when I became, younger teenager, my younger teenage years, because my dad was in the sporting clays and he was sponsored by Pure Gold at that time, and I think Rio shotgun shells or Musa. He was always sponsored by somebody. So I'd go to competitions with him. I won some big matches as a kid for like sub junior and stuff.
Oh, so you got right into it.
Yeah. So I won some stuff for shotgun and all that. And I can't remember which club we were at, but we were at a match in California, and we're going around and we're shooting our stages and stuff for I think it was feet toss, but they had pistol bays, and I see these guys running around like just crushing. And I see these open guns and stuff. And I think at the time it was IPSC. I don't know. I was a kid. And I remember like taking the card over because I was done shooting for the day and just watching these guys just run around. I'm like, that looks like so much fun. Mm-hmm. Right. And I knew since the time I was a kid that I wanted to join the military. Okay. And I'm like, that looks like a practical skill to have. Mm-hmm. And because I grew up with shotguns and stuff, I was just kind of bored with it.
Yep. Right? I get that.
I was just kind of bored with it. And I remember like we finished our match or whatever and driving home, and I was like, Dad, like, did you see those guys like shooting pistol? All right. And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't want to shoot shotguns. I want to do what they were doing.
How do you receive that?
I think it was a proud dad moment for him, like, honestly. Right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Because like he exposed me to all this stuff, but then he was seeing what I wanted to follow. Right. So I think it was more proud. Obviously he was like, man, I want my, to be on the Olympic team for shotgun shooting and stuff, but that's not what I wanted to do. I was good enough at it. I liked it. I can still pick up a shotgun and rip some targets, but just wasn't my thing.
So how long from that conversation to the time you did your first competition? Like less than a week?
No, so so back then, right? We did YouTube, and it just wasn't what it is.
Wasn't a thing, yeah.
But because my dad gave shotgun lessons all the time, he knew this individual named Mike Dalton, and Mike Dalton ended up being the creator of Steel Challenge. Okay, and he was like, "Hey, like I know that you shoot competitively, pistol, like you have the Steel Challenge thing or whatever. My son wants to get into it. So how do we get into it?"
How fortunate.
So what happened is my dad traded lessons, shotgun lessons, I believe, for pistol lessons. And this is back, Mike Dalton shot for Les Bear at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we grew up in 1911. So, of course, we got a couple 1911s, I had a Thunder Ranch Les Bear.
Wow.
And then my dad had a Premier too. And then we went out to the range, and Mike Dalton exposed us to Steel Challenge. And that's the only competition that I knew at the time. We went out to Piru. It used to be it was Piru Shooting Club. It's like California Tactical Academy or something.
Yep, that's exactly what it is now.
But that was like 45 minutes from my house. It was it was the coolest place in the world. And you just drive down, you got it was like miles of ranges. It had everything. So we'd go to the very back, and he exposed us to Steel Challenge. And that's where the addiction happened. It was like, bang, you hit the plate, and then I miss, bang. And it was just like, okay, well, how do I hit that now?
Right.
And within a month, it was shooting local matches. I think that year, with my first year, it was like 7 months later or whatever. That's when I took a second or third for Worlds.
Wow.
For World Steel Challenge, yeah.
How old are you? You're 14, something like that?
Oh.
Younger?
At that time, man, 16,
okay.
17. I don't know. I think around 16.
Okay.
15, 16. I don't know. I can't remember. It's been so long. But yeah, so my dad was cranking out 45s. We were shooting like 800 rounds a week, or I was shooting 800 or 1,000 rounds a week.
So you're reloading.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
I wasn't reloading. My dad was reloading. And he was cleaning the guns and everything. But it was a full-time job. But my dad was recovering from that time from one of his back surgeries. And so we had the time to do it, and we got some great father bonding time. And
outstanding.
Yeah, I grew up with my parents separated. So, key moments like that with my dad was special. I'll have those memories till the day I die.
Yeah, I grew up the same way. For me, I did. My parents are still together. I don't, it's actually very uncommon. I think they're still together after over 50 years. It's gross how much they care for one another. Whatever. I don't know how they do it for this long. But the point of that is like I remember the key moments spending time with my mom and my dad at different times, whether it was fishing, shooting, camping, hiking, going to the beach on the weekends. My mom was a nurse, worked graveyards, and so on the weekends she'd work like every other weekend. She'd sleep, so Dad would take us up to the beach, same beach every time. And I remember at times thinking, God, we're going to the beach again. But then after a while, especially looking back now, how valuable that time was for us. So I totally get it. And I think that's another interesting piece just with how firearms bring fathers and sons together.
It really does.
And, people look at it as kind of a weird thing sometimes. We're almost looked at as I think just firearms in general are looked at it weirdly by a lot of folks, but they don't recognize how that's part of growing up for so many people. Yeah. And, it's not all about self-defense all the time. It's about having fun. It's about competition, about learning life lessons. It's about learning skills and failing and succeeding and all those kind of things. Just like any sport, any academia, anything.
It's exactly the same. Like in that sense, it's just, is that what you like to do? And some people like baseball. Well, I like shooting.
Yeah, I know. I said, well, how come you need so many guns? How come you need so many pairs of shoes?
Right.
I
don't even need to answer that question. It's my right.
Right. Exactly. So, all right. So, man, so you've just done nothing but shooting, which explains, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. That explains why when I see you are having so much fun. You obviously take it very seriously, but at the same time, I can see the joy in it when I can see you on film and doing it. Like you're smiling, you're having a great time. It's very natural for you. It's it's almost like a part of who you are now.
Well, yeah, like the best people I've met in my life, besides the military, right, have come from the shooting world. My best friend in this day is Hunter Constantine, and He's a GM.
Yeah.
He just took third at Area 2
Yeah,
last week or whatever.
People listen to the show know who Hunter is, I'm sure. Yeah.
He's and it's just, I have the best friends from it. And then like one of my buddies, one of my other best friends, Eric Carlo, was an A-10 pilot. He retired out, right? And every time we have time off, like, what match are we going to go shoot?
Right.
And then, but that's that's like our hangout time too, because then you drive up to the match and you go shoot. So I get to hang with my bros, but we're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not sitting around drinking beer or whatever. Like, we're doing something where we're competitive and both of us are trying to improve and, you know, encourage one another. It's just an awesome environment.
You know, you alluded to something there just a second ago. I know there's a military career there. I think you mentioned that. Can we talk about that? What that look like?
So I was, I joined 2012, got out 18s, did 6 years. I was on an 18 X-ray contract. When I was in selection, I didn't make it. I got dropped for my psych eval.
Okay.
It was for my interview. So I remember the psych eval, and I remember taking it, and I'm like, oh, it was like one of those 800 question tests or whatever. I'm like,
yeah, they asked the same question 18 times.
Yeah, and I'm like,
just
this is
18
easy.
different ways.
I'm like, yeah, you just asked the same question, so whatever.
Right.
It got me flagged.
Got it.
And then the interviewer and myself did not get along from the moment.
It's not the first time I've heard of this. Yeah.
I'll never forget. And like, now that I was younger, I think I was, at that time, 23 maybe, 23 when I was in selection. Yeah. So I was younger, right? And, you know, cocky, like I knew what I wanted to do. I guess I didn't have the maturity and stuff. But I walked in there and this guy was such a jerk. He like throws down this file with papers and shit. And he was like, you had shitty parenting, like, or whatever. And I'm like, okay. And then like the whole conversation then went off into, he'd bring up some questions. And I remember him asking, or I would ask, I'd be like, can you be more specific? Like, because I don't want to give a broad answer. I want to answer you directly because I know that, you know.
This is important.
Yeah, this is important.
Right.
And he's like, for someone that's supposed to be pretty smart, you're pretty stupid. And that's when I was like, okay, you know, like, I hate this dude.
Do you think, looking back, like this was like a test?
Yes.
This was far at 100%. You just weren't reading it at the time.
Yeah, correct.
And you let him get the better of you.
He used to be, found out was a CIA interrogator.
Yeah, so
he controlled the room. I was just a dumb kid in there.
Right.
And I was like, okay. So I'm like, I'm pretty stupid now. And I remember it was like the next question. He was like, in your words, explain to me the mission of Special Forces, and I'll never forget. And I was like, DA, SUT, UW. And he's like, whoa, stop. He's like, what are you saying? I was like, well, for someone that's as smart as you, I think you understand what a fucking acronym is. And then he looked at me.
Yeah.
And then it went into something else about my mom, and I told him to go fuck himself.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, I was dropped from selection.
Right. Big surprise.
I failed my psych eval.
Big surprise. Yeah.
It's stupid, right? But,
so what happens next?
Well, I mean, I was broken, right? I was crushed, but because I wanted to be a Green Beret, that's all I wanted to do, but that wasn't going to happen. So luckily, because I was in 18 X-ray program, I was infantry already, and then I was airborne qualified and home at Bragg. So they moved me right over to the 82nd. And I remember being so like angry and disappointed. And I'm like, I'm going to be regular infantry. I couldn't have been more wrong. I went over to SECO 2508. We were 4th Brigade Combat Team at that time. And 4th Brigade Combat Team was just, they were only stood up for times of war. Like, all these guys did was train, deploy, train, and deploy. I didn't even know what my dress blues looked like after I graduated basic for like, I think 3 years. And I was like, oh man, how do I put these ribbons and stuff on? And I got over there, and you know what? I would have loved to gone back to selection, because selection was so much easier.
In your mind at that point?
Oh, it was so much easier. No, physically.
Oh, okay.
And mentally. Selection was easier than dealing with these freaking NCOs that I had in these. I mean, they were just a bunch of brutal, just killers. I mean, they were professionals at what they did. And it was just, I guess that's where I became a man. You know, they shaped and formed me. And it was a great time. We went to Afghanistan at 13, 14. And then we came back, and then we transitioned to 2nd Brigade. And, I mean, I just had the best friends and the best role models, and I earned my place. And it was like in the military. That's what I love about the military. You know exactly who someone is. You earn your place, but just everyone starts at the same place. They start from nowhere. And it was awesome. I spent all 6 years with Charlie Company 2508. So yeah, no, it was great. My mindset completely changed. I was very grateful. I'm like, man, like I love being here. If I could go back and do it again, I probably would have went for Ranger Regiment. But what's like, when I was in there, I didn't want to leave my guys. I didn't want to leave my unit.
I've heard this before too.
And that was the biggest thing. And I'm like, like we were very capable infantry unit. And I was like, there's no need for me to leave. But if I could go back and start it all over again, I wouldn't take that 18 X-ray. I would have taken a Ranger contract. Whatever happened. And then, maybe like now, I think within the last 4 or 5 years, I got to the maturity where I should have went to selection then.
It's interesting. It is like most things in life. I think a lot of things in life are about timing.
Yeah.
And just where you're at. It's not that you're not ready. You're just not ready right now.
Yeah.
Or it's not that it's never going to happen. It's just not happening right now. Or if it's a no for now. It's not a no forever. But you have to go through the journey to figure that part out.
Well, I remember the cadre because, in the 18 X-ray program, they have what was it? SOPSI? No, it was SFPC at the time, Special Forces Preparation Course.
Okay.
But you got SFPC hold, and that's hell. That was really hell because they got all these, candidates that want to be Green Berets, and the cadre's job, these SF dudes, their job is to get you in shape, but they're not nice. They're very mean people. And I remember so it's like 3-day CrossFit workouts, right? So if you've never done CrossFit, you're like, what? 100 burpee pull-ups,
right.
Or in handstand push-ups. I never did any of that. So it's like, you learn all this stuff, but they would hold us, right? And they'd be like, these exercises aren't stopping until we have 10 quitters. And you're like, and then here you are with all guys that have the same goal and dream as you.
Nobody's quitting.
And everybody's, oh no, they quit. But everybody's just in shit. Everyone's extremely fit. Yeah, and you're like, fit. Oh no,
this is going to go on for a while.
This is going to hurt. And then they'd get their quitters, or they'd have so many heat strokes, and then they'd quit. No, it was
by
awful.
Default.
Yeah, no, like my worst experience that ruined me for life. I still fight this to this day. Was we had one of our cadre take us for a run in June, but we had to wear full summer PTs, and then we had to wear full winter PTs. So beanie, glove, everything in the middle of freaking June. And it was like an 8-mile run. I had heat stroke like 4 miles into it. And I remember we were doing buddy carries up this hill. It was down a power line road. And it was just, hey, here's a hill. We can have guys do buddy carries up it. And we're doing buddy carries. And I remember just kind of like waking up.
The lights went out, yeah.
Yeah, just kind of like waking up. And I see this cadre screaming at me. I see him. I don't hear him because I don't know what's going on. And I see this guy looking at me. He's all worried. And I see people carrying him up. So I just grabbed him and I continued carrying him up the hill. I'm like, I assume this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then we start running back because that was the turnaround point after that. And I collapsed again. But one of my best friends, Jake Whitworth, he stayed back. We were together and he picked me up. And at this time, my vision was gone. I'm seeing black and white. Everything's cramped. I'm in excruciating pain. And he's like, dude, if you want to make it, you got to keep running, So end up running, continue running, make it back. And, the cadre are going off on me because I was last at that point. They're going off and trying to get me to quit and all that. And I was like, we can stay here all day. I'm not quitting. I'd rather die than quit. And yeah, then it went on but that place was awful. SFPC hold was terrible.
Well, I think it speaks to just the human condition and suffering and what people will go through and kind of how they manage through it and recognize how they can keep pushing to the next level.
Yeah.
And it also, I think when I hear a story like that and I think about the people I spend time around with and kind of this genre and whatever, and then conversations I have outside of it that really don't understand it at all, that is the major separator. It's they have no idea what really tough things are. And what you're talking about is something that's very mentally and physically tough. But I think that's what we do as humans, right? I mean, that's what we should be constantly challenged in is what's going on there. And I think it's hard for people to relate. So you're just kind of going back to where if I circle this all the way back to kind of what's happened at Rogue with the family, mentality, the no ego, the morals, the values, the ethics, those kind of things. I just think in general, because you have suffered, right?
Yeah.
And everybody in the group understands what that looks, feels, sounds, smells, tastes like.
Exactly.
It's very easy to relate. And I think there's gaps when I see other groups working together, or, where the messages get muddled, is because maybe not everybody has done that, right? So it's harder to give up I think it's harder to find a common ground, and then it ends up being more of like a bro conversation about stuff. And I think we use that term like, these are my brothers, my bros, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean that in a, like, it's very shallow. It hasn't gone to the depths that it needs to go to. And I might be kind of carrying on. People might be listening to this going, dude, where are you even going with that? I guess there's not really a question in it. It's more of a statement of, when, again, going back to the story, in that there's a certain amount of suffering that I think folks have to go through in one way or another, or understand, in order to understand the value that's being brought to the table when you're going out on the range and hanging out with you guys, or hanging out with anybody for that matter, and getting training. Like, what does this really mean?
Well, I mean, to me, it's such a shock, and I think the military is so great because it's such a shock, because it's so easy to grow up in our cushy life. Now we're not out doing warrior stuff. We're not out. I mean, we're not out working the farms. I mean, you got a nice air conditioned house.
Right.
You go to school and you maybe play some sports, and it's so difficult, it's so hard, and it's kind of a slap in the face of like, hey, this is what the world really is, and you learn exactly how tough you are and how tough you're not. I'd say all the time, I'm not a tough guy. I never physically said I quit, but I quit all the time. I was in my head like, I'm going to quit on that next step. I'm going to quit at that light pole.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I just wouldn't say it. And I just keep going, know?
Right. Yeah, something to be said for saying that out loud and having it manifest, right?
Yeah. But I mean, you learn exactly who you are and what you're capable of. And it's crazy how quickly the mind will give up before the body actually gives up. And you can be in so much pain and still keep going. It's pretty remarkable. But yeah, no, that was the military. It's spent 6 years. I got out as I was a squad leader, but I got out as a sergeant, E5.
Okay.
Got in some trouble that held back my promotion. We're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
But I got out as a squad leader, E5. Probably the best NCO ER evaluation report I've ever seen. I was very fortunate. I had some amazing first sergeants, sergeant majors, and just mentors, platoon sergeants. And I got out and moved to Arizona. My family always had a house here in Arizona, and my grandparents did. So on vacations, holidays, around this time of year, we'd always be up here. And me being a gun fanatic, I knew that
it's a little freer here.
Yeah, a little freer. So came out here, and I guess I could circle back in the military. Actually, let's talk a little bit about that, because that's where I found out I love teaching. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was just going to ask you about the transition. So let's go back.
Yeah. So we're gonna go back, and this is how I got into teaching. Right. So military, you move up through the ranks, and what do you have to do? You have to teach others. Right. You got to teach the new guys. When I was in Afghanistan, I was private first class, and everyone got M9s, right? And everyone got these M9s, and a few people knew about my shooting experience, and that I had some like world titles and stuff under my belt, and I won like some rimfire stuff, and that I loved handguns and all that. And I can't remember if it was my squad leader or my PL came up to me and was like, "Hey, you're going to train the entire company on M9." Oh, okay, I am. So like I was like, okay, that's easy. I can do that. So I wrote out my little training plan and everything, and we were at FOB Phoenix, and we had I can't remember which SF group, but we had an SF group there with us, and they had their own private range and everything.
Okay.
And they let us go use it, so to train these guys on the M9, right? And so go over there, and it was weird because I'm teaching NCOs, I'm teaching officers.
Interesting.
And I'm like, oh man,
you're just getting beat up by those guys for the last 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. These dudes just crush my soul every day. And I'm nothing but an idiot, but here I am I'm gonna teach you, And sure enough, I'm teaching them. And I remember the team sergeant for the SF group. He was a sergeant first class, last name Daryl, and he was back there. And the SF guys start coming in, right, and like kind of trying to like overtake my class. And I remember I'm like, that's not right.
Just from like a technique perspective, or yeah, gotcha. Okay,
and they're like, and I remember him being like, well, "Who are you?" And my sergeant was like, "He's a world champion." And like, "Oh, is that a fact?" And then like literally, it was bang. They're just throwing their joke right there.
Right.
And
here we go.
"Oh, is that a fact?" And like, "Yeah, it is." I'm like, "Okay, well, let's have a shooting competition." I was,
okay,
yeah. So he sets
I love where this is going.
He sets up his little course of fire, and so I got whichever platoon I had that day. It was my very first day of teaching. So whichever platoon was with me, they were back, and then his team are back. And he was like, he goes over the course of fire. I have an M9. He has his Glock 19, and they put their own sights and stuff on it. Mm-hmm. So one, I'm already at a disadvantage because I got M9. I got not long double action trigger pull, and it's a piece of junk. But it was just, not that the gun's a piece of junk. It was just when they're rotated.
It's straight out of the box, but it's been used 5 times by 5 other dudes.
Yeah. And so he's like, "Okay, champ, show us how it's done." And I was like, "No, Sergeant, you want to talk shit? You show us how it's done." Mm-hmm. So he shoots the course of fire, and he did great. I mean, those guys can shoot. I mean, they're shooters, right? Okay. And I went, "Okay," and everyone's like, "Oh, okay." And buzzer goes off, and I just crush his soul. And I look back at him, and I just smile. And then his whole team and my whole platoon, whatever behind me, everyone, "Oh, he said, you." And then he was like, "Touche," And then after that, I mean, those guys were all awesome. Like, "Hey,
respectful."
Yeah. "Hey, come sit with us. You want to?" And no, my NCOs aren't going to catch me sitting over here,
Right.
And then, so that kind of got passed around. And then my battalion commander found out that I was teaching these guys on the M9 and that he had a former champion, in his battalion. Mm-hmm. So next thing I know, "Hey, you're needed at the range. You're going to teach the battalion commander how to shoot pistol."
Holy shit.
I'm a PFC. I'm like, okay. I get out there. There's my first sergeant loading mags. I'm like, "Oh God, this is all bad."
All the guys, yeah.
But it ended up being great. And then it was like, for months, like every week or 2 weeks, I'd be giving the battalion commander a private lesson. And that's where I realized, I'm like, I like doing this. Like, I was just able to help out so many people that had no clue. And it was easy to do. Mm-hmm. It was easy for me to do and construct a plan and teach them. And that's where it started.
That's a really great story. I love good stories, and I'm not usually into like the war stories, but that one's a great one, man. I love that.
I'll never forget my sergeant. Like, put me right out there, and having everyone behind me. I was so scared. Yeah. And then because then here's Green Berets, like those guys are intimidating when you're a private, Mm-hmm.
Sure. I think you're intimidated to most people, but I get it, man. What a great story. So let's flash forward then, like go back to like the transition. So you get out, and you brought that up, like, here, where did I learn to love teaching, and how did I kind of learn to do that? How long before you get into firearms instruction?
Okay, yeah. So I got out in 2018. Moved out here, and I have Pima Pistol Club that's really close to my house, and just started shooting local matches and getting into it. And I met Hunter there when Hunter was new. I used to smoke Hunter. Now he crushes my soul. And it was funny. I didn't like Hunter at first. When I met him, I thought he was annoying. I'm like, this kid's annoying, because I just got out of the military. My mindset's a little different and stuff, and I'm a little more hard, or whatever you want to call it. And then I was like, we were practicing all the time. We saw each other at the range, and then we became best friends, and we were practicing all the time, shooting matches. So some months go on. I don't know how many months, but we're really good friends, And he was like, "Hey, dude, there's this Fieldcraft Survival. They're going to be doing this class. Okay. Like, go do it with me." And I look at him like, "Why?" And he's like, "Oh, like, it'll be fun. Like, we'll go over some stuff." And I'm like, "Hey, it's been like since a year since I did anything. Maybe I'll learn something. Maybe I'll freshen up on something. Maybe I'll remember something I forgot about." Mm-hmm. I'm like, "It'll be a good experience." And I didn't even know who Fieldcraft Survival was at the time. Apparently, they were a really big training company.
At the time, probably the largest firearms training company in the United States of America, maybe arguably the world.
Yeah, right? I would say mm-hmm. so. But I was like, okay, I'll go. So we went to do some pistol courses. Or was it pistol and carbine? I don't know. It was just the first day we did pistol. And so Hunter and I were paired up, and Mike Glover, he was there that day. And I think he had another instructor with him, but he taught the course. So that was a big deal. People absolutely loved it when Mike would teach a course. So he's teaching, but I don't know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going through the drills. We're listening. We're doing everything we're supposed to. And he comes by our targets a couple times, and he's looking. He's looking at our grouping, and he's seen that me and him are just like, we're joking around, just having fun, and that we're done. Like on the command to fire, you hear us fire, and then we're already like holstering as you hear the rest of the line.
Above average shooters, to say the least. Yeah.
And so he comes by and he's like, who are you guys? I'm like, oh, what's going on, sir? I'm Dillon Ventske. And Hunter's like, I'm, Hunter. And he's like, where did you guys learn to shoot like that? And we're like, oh, like we're both masterclass shooters, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, really? Well, and then it goes on to we do another drill, like where we had to move and shoot this piece of steel, right? And people are walking and they're learning to move and shoot, and they're shooting the steel. Well, he asked for the next one. Hunter's like, he pushes me and he volunteers me. Right. Now I remember he's not expecting it. We go through and I just take off full sprint, boom, 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 boom. And by the time I get to the finish line, I'm already doing a mag change, and he's yelling at me to slow down. But I just smoked the steel, and everyone's like, what the heck, And then Hunter goes up and he does the same thing. So rest of the day goes on. We finish the course, and he was like, do you guys want to be instructors for me? I'm like, yeah, that sounds fun. Like I get to teach this stuff. Like, yeah, let's be instructors. He brought up I think shooting for him and being instructors. It was like It was kind of like a combo thing. And we're like, yeah. And the next thing I knew, we were instructors for Fieldcraft Survival, and I moved on from there, and that's where I met Raul. Raul was my he was my boss. He was the director of training, and it was funny because Raul did not like me or Hunter at first because he didn't get to pick us. We were just throwing to him. Like I get it 100%. We were throwing to him. He's like, who are these guys?
Right.
And I don't know them. And so we taught for Fieldcraft for I don't know a couple years.
Wait, time out. How did that go, though? How did Raul warm up to you? How did you get him to like you?
I mean, I guess just natural progression. He, at first, like he had like this look, and he'd look at me very.
Raul's got a few looks.
Yeah. He has that look. But no, so JJ, Joel Marks, right? So that's I think JJ Marks on Instagram. He mentored me, so I taught a few classes with him, where he was primary, and I got to see how they run it and stuff. And then Raul would be there and coaching, right? He'd be like, Dillon, I need you to teach this, or I need this from you. I need you to pick up the pace. I need you to slow it down here. Whatever I was doing wrong, right? And he was mentoring me to be better. And so we did that. I don't know how many times, but quite a few times. And then next thing I knew, I was on the road running classes myself. And it was an incredible opportunity. Got to teach some amazing people, meet some amazing people, make some friends out of it. And yeah, so then Raul, he broke out, and he started his own thing. I left Fieldcraft. It wasn't for me anymore. I'm just leave it at that.
These things happen in business. People move on.
It wasn't for me anymore. Still got some amazing friends over there. It just wasn't for me. But I still love teaching, and this is when Raul started Rogue Methods, right? And I mean, it was cool. Like, especially like I love the beginning, like seeing what it was at the beginning to like what it's changed into.
The evolution,
now. Yeah. Well, because he's always changing it. Like he's always making it better,
evolving.
Yeah, evolving it. And so he started off with that, and I guess he got to a point where he had a big enough following and group that wanted classes from him and that were asking about firearms that he thought he should bring firearms into it. And I think enough people asked him.
Wait, hold on. What was he teaching? What?
The close contact gunfighter.
Okay, so let's come back to that. Okay, gotcha. So people were asking about firearms instruction.
Yeah. So I'm assuming, he just got to a place and he got sick of people asking him like, hey, when's Dillon going to teach? When Dillon going to teach? And once he was at the capability to have firearms included, I believe myself and Joel were the very first two he asked to join his team. And without hesitation, I was like, yes. And the
rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, I think let's go back to the close contact gunfighter stuff, because I think that's really where I always put a lot of focus. Or
Mm-hmm.
let me just put this way, because I think he looks at it as the team, right? You guys have put your focus, Rogue Methods focus, into that class in terms of what people see. But my experience has been it's a lot more than just what people see. And I hope people kind of get that from this interview, that it's not just that close contact gunfighter course. In terms of what you see on video, maybe on Instagram or whatever, that's a very, there are a lot of pieces to it, and you're seeing a very specific piece. Yeah.
Right. So what you'll see a bunch of people popping up that are trying to teach the same thing. But what really sets Raul and I believe his team apart is their ability to break something down and to articulate what they need done, right? Not just how to do it, but the why. That's very important. So you'll see stuff on Instagram, but you won't hear what Raul, for instance, is explaining and how he's explaining it. And then you're like, but when you're in the class, you're like, oh, it makes sense.
Right. Yeah. I think it's important. I think it's important that we get, that the people, I think people are starting to hear it more, where like, hey, you only heard a snippet of it.
Mm-hmm.
You can assume all the things you want to assume about what you think he said or what he was talking about or whatever else, and get into the comment section and any number of things.
Yeah.
I actually think, the interesting part about like what Rogue Methods is doing is people don't generally get involved in there, because at this point with those types of comments, or let me just say negativity or kind of the weird stuff, you're always going to have that. Like, that's just part of playing the game on social media. But I think people are finally sort of aware, like, you're not leaving me much to work with here. I either like it or I don't. If I feel compelled to know more, then I should go take a class.
Yep.
Let's be honest, that's what Instagram is, right? We're promoting the business.
Yeah.
And when you get there, you will realize that there is quite a bit more to it than, what you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, like from the surface, right? From the surface, it just looks like another course, right? But that's part of the advertisement. I'm like, it's Instagram.
It's exactly what it is.
It's Instagram. It's Instagram. It's not real. It's Instagram. And it's part of the advertisement. But I think the reviews and stuff, like, if you go on and you look at something, look at the reviews.
Right.
The reviews speak for themselves.
There's a lot of consistency in that. It's not something that, it's just kind of a fad and started 6 months ago and we'll see where this is 6 months. It's now been years, multiple years of this, and it's fairly well established. So maybe talk a little bit, without, going through the entire curriculum. I would never want to do that anyway. Right. That would be boring for people listening. You should go if you want to learn about it.
Right.
But talk about the curriculum beyond that, like with the firearms training and kind of what you're doing.
So the biggest thing to me, right, is let's just go back. So I see a lot of great shooters out there that will never become better because they don't understand how to practice. I see them just doing the same thing over and over again. And they have the potential to be better, but they won't get better because they don't know how to practice. Mm-hmm. So a big thing for me when I'm teaching a class, I'm taking you through grip, right? Vision, your stance.
Things people would expect.
Everything you expect. But I try to tell you how to improve it. I want to give you the tools, so as soon as I'm gone, as soon as we're not at the range, that you can go back and you'll be like, okay, this is how I isolate my grip. This is how I isolate my grip. This is what I just need to work on. This is what I need to work on to improve that. So I see a lot of people that go on their practice, right? Like they practice a course of fire. They practice a stage.
A drill.
Right, yeah. A drill. Well, that's great at times, but it's not isolating the specific skill you want. If you want to just practice, if you need to get faster at mag changes, guess what? That's the only thing you need to practice is mag changes. If you want to understand how to manage recoil, you don't need to be drawing the gun and throwing these extra steps in there where it's going to screw up your grip and everything. You need to learn. Just load up a mag, press the gun out, really think, make that mind-body connection, press the trigger and feel that recoil impulse and get used to it. See what the sights are doing. See what behavior, the gun is having. And you need to learn to isolate each skill at a time. And then once you master everything, that's when everything kind of comes together and you're like, oh, wait, I can shoot well. But it's like, you'll see people shooting slow all the time, right? Well, there's only one way to learn to shoot fast. You got to shoot fast. That means you got to fail. So when I practice, I used to practice. This last year, I've really I only shoot really matches now in this last year because I've been focused on something else. But when I was practicing for a major, right, it's real simple. I would start off with whatever I'm like, hey, today I'm working on transitions, okay? So I'd set up my little course, and I'd be like, what's the speed I can do this at consistently every time perfectly?
Okay.
So I take mental note of that. Okay. Then I go through and I'm like, what's the fastest my body can do it, but where I'm not getting my hits? Okay, I take mental note of that.
Okay.
Now, I got this time at one extreme and this time at one extreme. Now, how do I get those closer?
Close the gap. Mm-hmm.
And then I would close that gap, and then I'd be like, okay, I left now today better. I'd practice just 25 yards, just 25-yard target. If you can shoot iron sights 25 yards all day and get your zeros, anything else inside of that,
it gets a lot easier.
It gets a lot easier. Like, oh man, 12 yards, that's not scary, you know? And then you start ripping the gun.
Yes, you don't see a lot of videos of people shooting their pistol at 25 yards.
No.
They really like that 6 and 7 yard stuff, though.
Yeah. Well, because you don't need to use sights.
Well, it's interesting. Like, just going back, I don't think it's that interesting. You talked about people, they don't know how to practice.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. I think what it comes down to, and this is a lot of things in life, is they choose not to focus on the things that they're really not that good at, because they don't want to look at that as a problem. So they're constantly overcompensating to work around something that they're not that good at. And
honestly,
maybe it's because they don't know how to break it down. I don't know.
I think that's part of it, but I honestly just feel like they don't know. You know, there's not a lot of people just putting out that information of, this is how I practice. This is how I've got to be so good, you know, as good as I am. And when you're one of these pros like Neil Jonathan, like, you know, Christian, JJ, you don't see their daily practice routine.
Right.
So if you've never seen that and no one's telling you how to do it, how are you supposed to emulate that?
That's a good point. So
it's very important to me when I teach a class, I tell the students how to practice. Well, we're doing this cone drill, and on, like, for instance, on Instagram, right? You'll see like us running a cone drill, and they're just those little like Amazon cones. And you're like, oh, they're running up and they're shooting a target and then they're running back. Looks like any other cone drill. That's not what I'm working on. I'm having the students work on their situational awareness and their body, right? So what you'll see if you watch any of those videos is that my foot hits that cone every time. And then I press the trigger. And then I'm running back and I stop on the cone while still staying focused downrange. And then I break my shots. The reasoning behind that is, I think situational awareness and our vision to see that's the number one tool in shooting.
100%.
Okay. So we have these courses designed around self-defense, right? Be better at shooting, but like, hey, if you need to use your gun in self-defense,
these things are important. Yeah.
These things are important. Well, why is this important? Well, if you can remember where that cone is and you can land your foot on it, guess what? You can remember exactly where that corner is to get behind that cover or that concealment. You can run back and be like, I know that that freezer or whatever was right there. And I can instinctively run back to it and get to it while still staying focused on what I need to be focused on. So that's huge, actually, and when I teach a course.
Yeah, so there's a lot of shooting happening, like we're putting rounds down range, but there's a lot of other things happening in the background that you're not going to see or hear. And again, like I think for whatever reason, and I don't think this is so if I go to like the Rogue Methods, website, I'm going to see any number of different courses. It's not all close contact gunfighter. It's just what you see. And, I hear, and I talk to people that think that's all you guys do. Like
they think all we do is
all you're doing is close contact gunfighter, because for whatever reason, they're not seeing anything else, or what really, caught their attention was, the scrum happening around the blue gun or whatever else. That's just my experience. I'm not saying that's what everybody thinks. I just see a lot of that. And that's why I wanted you to walk through that. Is just like, yeah, what are they doing? I go, they do all kinds of stuff. And there's very skilled, very skilled set of guys there.
It's supposed to complement the close contact gunfighter.
Right.
You can see, like, on my Instagram, I have like one of my little fights when they first started, right? But what's really unique, if you watch the video, you'll see me like, I get behind the guy and you'll see me grab the gun out of the dirt. Without looking at it, I flip it in the air, catch it, and then, I try to use the sim gun. Mm-hmm. It was out of battery, tap, and then it's over. But it's like, wait, you were in this scary situation where your adrenaline stuff's going through the roof, and you see a guy be able to flip the gun, catch it. Like, that shows complete confidence.
There's something else going on there, yeah.
That shows complete confidence with a firearm. And it needs to be an extent of you, right? It just needs to be an extension of your body. So we try to, in the firearms courses, like, hey, like we want you to be that level of comfortable with these tools, because if you need that tool, you're going to need to be comfortable.
Anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
Right.
And, like what's big in our class too is like, we hold you accountable for accuracy, right? Like, so, I mean, we'll take it out to like 70 yards, 80 yards, however far that we can get on a range. Like, how far can you shoot? Well, why would you want to do that? Well, times have changed. You're no longer just worried about going to your car and getting carjacked, right? Mm-hmm. No, I'm worried about being in my grocery store at Walmart. Now, if you think from corner to corner, how far is that?
Right. Yeah.
Right? And I'm worried about some dude in there with a freaking AR and body armor.
Right.
Now, can you make that shot if you have to preserve your life or someone else's life? So why wouldn't you shoot distance? Like,
well, you better try. You better at least test yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And not everybody has that opportunity. So when they come to a class, you're going to give them that opportunity because their range is indoor. It's 25 yards only. All that kind of stuff. So there's opportunities beyond what would be in the typical class curriculum, right? And you're going to mold it and adjust it to the environment that you're in, the students that you're in front of, and obviously whatever flexibility that you guys can have. And that's what I watched happen when I've been there, is just to understand how the flow goes.
Yeah.
There's things we need to get covered. As long as we may move over here a little bit to get some of that covered, and we might have some flexibility to come way back over here to do this over here. All the curriculum gets delivered, but not every class is exactly the same.
No, and it can't be, right? Because as an instructor or as a teacher, whatever, you have to read your audience. So if you got a bunch of skilled guys that are already good at this, why focus on that?
Yeah, ramp it up.
Yeah, ramp it up. Let's do something. I want to work on which you're not really confident with, right? I want to, let's move on. Like, we don't need to just go through this just because it's to check the block. No, that's not how you have a good class.
So just with the classes and all the things, like how are you managing that? Like through, you were mentioning, Raul kind of expanding things and, having to scale the business and get guys involved. You guys have a whole team. How does your travel schedule look? How you managing stuff?
So I took a step back from being like trying to teach all the firearms courses and everything like that. I'm currently in the process for my dream job.
Okay.
And Raul was tracking, and I was like, hey, like I could be leaving as fast as everything was going. I could be leaving in a month. I could be leaving in 2 months. It could be a year. So we need to have other guys on the team. And I was really out of shape, and I just talked with Raul. I'm like, hey, like I need to take a step back because I need to make my life dream happen. I need to get back in shape, and I just need to focus on myself. And Raul, being the amazing human being he is, absolutely 100% encourages me.
Right.
Just yesterday I was going over like my run and like different stretches and stuff, and he's like, oh, make sure to do this. And I was like, smart man.
So I may have gotten a little bit of intel on you, and that there was something else that you were trying to pursue. And that was a question I wanted to ask you to get the answer that I thought I was going to get, which is what you just gave me. And that the team leader, understands that people will move and shift and need to do things in their life. And he's supportive of that. And that is not common when we see people leave teams. And I think you kind of talked a little bit about your history before, with other companies and, Raul's history previously and moving on. And I think that's something that to be spoken about, with respect to how this business is being handled, because it continues to thrive, and it thrives not because you have all the talent in the world, but because that talent can work together. And you also recognize that talent may need to move on. They may need to do other things. Things happen. And it's, you guys are able to work through that stuff.
We spent years, and Raul doesn't let people get close. It takes a while for you to actually, like, for him to really trust you and consider you like a real friend. Because we talked about the way this business is and the way people will just try to pull you apart. And, through these years, I guess I proved my loyalty, and he's proved it to me. And we decided that, we're both individuals that we want each other's lives, and we're family now. So even though I'm not teaching, it doesn't mean I'm not part of the team.
Right.
No, I'll represent Rogue Methods till the day I die. Like, go take a course with them, because I know anybody that comes to that team has the same mentality as I do, right? And that they were hand selected, and it wasn't just for their shooting ability or their fighting ability. No, you have to check all the boxes, because I'm not the best shooter in the world. I shoot matches all the time, and I get my butt whipped all the time.
It's a great part about competition, right?
Right?
There's always somebody better.
Yeah, there's always someone better.
It's any given Sunday, as they say.
But what sets an instructor apart is like, hey, how can I communicate with the students? How can I identify the issue and then correct it and get it through to the student? Can I articulate it differently? Because what works for you may not work for the next person. And like a big thing, right, in classes, like I've seen this, and it comes from a lot of like military guys, right? I was one of them. They'll be running a class and you run it militaristic. That doesn't respond well, right? It's like, especially shooting course, it doesn't respond well for the civilians. Because, this person, they're coming to the course because they want to learn. Mm-hmm. That's why they're seeing you. The last thing they need to do is be yelled at, right? Or treated like they're in the military. Ready, oh,
right.
It's nerve-wracking. It's not fun. Or you'll see someone like, happens all the time. You're in front of the line, right? Someone pulls out their gun. It happens. It happens.
Oh, you mean when you're downrange?
Yeah, you're up there giving a block of instruction, and
somebody unholsters.
Yeah, and that's a prime example. You'll see a lot of people just freak out, right? It's just biting their head off.
It's serious business, but yeah,
it is.
I think where you're getting is how you respond.
But it's how you respond. It's 100% serious business. But it's how you respond, because this individual, they're screwing up because they don't know better, right? Now, I can correct this issue violently, or I can correct it in a way that doesn't publicly embarrass them. It doesn't make them feel ashamed of themselves. And guess what? They can continue learning through the rest of the day. Otherwise, they're just going to shut down. They're going to shut down. They're not going to learn anything.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah. So I'll be like, hey guys, can everyone make sure they're holstered for me? I'll never call that individual out. Make sure the line's holstered. All right, cool, thanks. And I'll just go back to my block. And then at the end when I'm walking through, and I was like, hey man, I'd really appreciate it if you don't do that again while I'm up there, all right? Now, whatever, thank you.
Just made your point.
Yeah. And like
privately.
Yeah, privately.
Right.
Never publicly embarrass someone, because they're a student. And now they're going to go home, and then, or they're going to tell their buddies or whatever. The instructor was a jerk, or you know what? Hey, I screwed up. Or
maybe they never say a word about it, but they're never going to do that again.
Yep.
Right.
Or they, and they go, you know what? You should go take a class with them.
Right.
Word of mouth that's the best business. Just create a good reputation.
Right.
So I think that's really big too with us. It's like, we just try to be real people and understand that our students are real people. I'm not out there in the military teaching privates.
Right.
It's a completely different world.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of people can get on board with that. It has been the message for quite some time. As of late, I've been talking to a lot of folks, and I would just say centered on that concept of a person's introduction to the firearm space. Whether it's in instruction or purchasing a firearm or going through the process of learning about them and where they're getting that information from, more importantly, how, and the experiences that they have, and how that can, that first experience can 100% dictate how they approach the rest of their journey. And, if you're feeling responsibility, as you've clearly articulated you do, to helping that person get the best experience possible, so that they're extracting value out of those things without all the some of the bullshit, for lack of a better term, that can come along with it. I think that's an important thing. Now, I understand also that is not every class that happens on the range. I mean, there are guys teaching to LEO. There are guys teaching to the military. But I think you said it, knowing how to read the room, who's your audience. You're not saying that's for everybody. You're saying but for most people, and the people that you come in contact with most, that's what it is.
I mean, even if I was teaching the cops, right, and let's say they got their sergeant or whatever, I'm teaching the LEOs. Like, I'm going to handle it the same way, but his sergeant is going to handle it differently.
Right.
Let them handle it.
Right.
Like that's
not your job.
That's not my job. My job is to make you better, and I can't make you better if I make you mentally shut down. Now, if he chooses to make you mentally shut down and not be able to gather more information for the rest of the day, that's on them, not on me. I did my best.
Right. So let's talk about just like you mentioned, look, you're preparing for something that you've been preparing for something for a long, long time, but. Are you still competing? Are you still shooting matches?
Yeah, so I still shoot local matches. I'm not shooting any majors right now.
The local matches all over down here, man.
That's all it is.
All week long, like I was stunned. Like you go out on any day of the week and shoot a match.
Yeah, I was trying to tell Tony, because I'm meeting up with Tony later, and I was like, dude, is there any matches like Thursday night? Because we could do this podcast and like let's go shoot a night match or something. Right. But yeah, no, there's always matches. I mean, that's Arizona. I would say with 100% that the best shooters as a whole come from Phoenix, Arizona. And
just because of the accessibility to get into competitions, and they're just shooting more rounds. And
and anytime you shoot on a squad, you're shooting with someone that was a world champion, a state champion, national champion. You're shooting with, you're never just shooting with just a bunch of, you're always shooting with a pro. Like there's someone there that you won't even know it. And you're like, oh, I guess you were world champion, a couple of years ago.
I guess that makes sense, because I mean, I see guys posting stuff all the time, and when I talk to them, they're shooting matches and constantly shooting matches. And you mentioned Tony, he's like, man, if we got some time, we could totally jump into a match this afternoon. I'm like, this afternoon we can just go jump into a match?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the itinerary has been so tight. He's been an awesome host, by the way. But the itinerary's been so tight, I wasn't able to get out and do that. But next time I get here, like, I'm definitely going to have to jump into some of this stuff. And it won't be long before I come back. That's such a good time.
Oh, it's worth it. And like, I mean, I think I was saying earlier, my practice is competition.
Yeah.
So I don't dry fire. I'm one of like probably the few instructors, like I don't dry fire. I believe dry fire is it's amazing and it can do amazing things. But I believe that if you don't know exactly what you're doing, you can also reinforce bad habits. So I think you just got to be smart with it. And there's a lot of great instructors that talk you through how to dry fire properly and everything like that. So there's no need to cover it. But with my work schedule stuff, like my dry fire for me is like I'm sitting on the couch with an unloaded gun shooting bad guys on TV or light switches or whatever. That's my dry fire, just hitting the mag, in and out. Like to me, that's dry fire, because I don't like just standing there in my competition belt. I get bored.
So you get out on the range and
so I go to the range.
Live.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like it's cold performance, which is what it would be in real life.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I just go out and shoot matches. I shoot any sort of pistol match I can. I've really got into the carbine matches. Out here they have black rifle and accurized carbine. I'll be shooting that Saturday, and that's you're taking your carbine, you're taking it out to like 700 plus yards. With your normal 14.5.
How fun.
Yeah, it's awesome.
The internet says this is impossible.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
I know it's not. I'm being sarcastic.
No, that's what's so funny. It's like you would think that because that's what the internet tells you. And then you watch these guys and you're like, oh, we just took these 14.5s. Like we had 3 hits on a row, 1,014 yards with a 14.5 and a 75 grain bow tail hollow point.
Keep telling that. Yeah,
with a 1 to 8 power.
Right.
But your max effective range is 500 meters.
Yeah. Stop it with all that.
Just stop. So
I tell you what, man. Like before sitting down with you, like I did mention, I had a little bit of intel on you, but I didn't know a lot about you outside of like your love of shooting, and that's palpable from the outside looking in. And you walking through the story really, I think, bridges the gap between what I could feel and what I could see and why.
Right.
And I appreciate you sharing all of that. And I think there's always a little mystery behind, the folks that you see out there. And I think there was probably a little bit more mystery behind you, just because like I understand we've talked about the team a lot, and I don't want to make it all about the team, that the podcast is really about you, but to get onto that team, there has to be some depth. And you covered that. And so part of this, I hope, is, from people on the outside looking in, like upcoming instructors, people that really want to be instructors or want to be more involved and are not sure how. I want to ask you, like, what advice do you give them, in their journey to they want to make an impact. They might not be quite ready or sure how to do it. What do you tell them?
So what's funny about that is, like, I have all the time on my Instagram, right? Hey, how do I become an instructor? I always tell my students, like, if you ever have any questions, like, hit me up. If you want me to review some of your stages, your footage, or what you're working on, like, I'll be happily do it. If you want my opinion, I'll give it to you. And so that's actually a common question, like, hey, how do I get into it and stuff? So I think number one is make sure that your heart is the right place, right? Don't do it because, you want the money, or you want to be able to charge, $150 a class, or whatever it is. Have the right reasons.
Right.
All right. And then number two is, I don't really care about your certifications. I care about how well you can shoot. So I think to have a deep understanding of shooting, you need to be a good shooter, right? And this amazing thing, we have competition. And you're compared against everyone in the world. They got classes. They got, there's a reason why it's there. Go compete. Get classified. Be an expert, a master class shooter. Be a really good shooter, even A class, just to be a really good shooter and start to develop that deep understanding for shooting, right? Like one of my favorite things, like I always hear people talk about, and they're like, "Oh, it's my trigger press. It's my trigger press when I'm shooting low left or whatever." No, it's not. No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
Right, I get where you're going. Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you right now, the best shooters in the world slap the hell out of the trigger. Yeah. I mean, it's just slap. No, what it is, it's your grip pressure is changing drastically during the trigger press, which is if you're right-handed, you're dipping at the gun low left now. But they get isolated on the
trigger.
Yeah. Like, no, like if you want to shoot fast, that's what you got to do. You're going to slap the trigger.
Don't fall into the trap of listening to the generalized correction, right? For whatever the thing that you're seeing is happening on the target. Right. It's a little bit deeper than that. So don't regurgitate that information.
Right. It's learning for yourself, right? Like you said, you hit a keyword, regurgitate. Yeah, you're not out there saying what someone else told you or whatever. You're out there teaching what you know to be true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like,
I get it. I think that's really solid advice. You touched on something there about having to compete, and I've had different thoughts about this in the shooting community, specific to the competition piece. And this is where I am with it right now, because I'm with you. And some people try to make comparisons. I may have done this a time or two. I don't recall, but I probably have, because I'm in the I spend my time and make my money in sort of the fitness world and human performance and things like that. So it's very easy to make the comparison of, like, you have an athlete, right? And you're trying to teach that athlete how to, I don't know, let's think NFL, right? So you've got a coach that's never played the position, that's never actually done the thing that they're coaching their athlete to do. And there may be a little bit of resistance from the athlete to the coach on, well, you've actually never done this before. And so you can't tell me how to do it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But that guy also isn't 6'4", right? He doesn't run, a 4 flat 40, right? He didn't have the same opportunities that you have, both genetically and all those things, and maybe where he was in life. That doesn't mean he can't give you a skill set, right? Or help you with your skill set to be a better athlete of who you are.
Absolutely.
And in terms of him telling you how to run, he's not telling you how to lift weights. He's not telling you how to be stronger, necessarily how to be faster. He's telling you what you do in this particular situation for this particular thing. On the shooting side of things, I think it's different, because there really is zero barrier of entry. You don't have to fit a certain height, weight, size, whatever, in order to go compete.
That's true.
Now, those things will impact you, right? Your health, your fitness, your mobility, your speed, agility, quickness, all those things will impact you in terms of where you might rank as a shooter. But anybody can go do this with all the different classes of firearms and all the different classes that they run. You can kind of shoot anything you want. So if you really want to do this and you really want to be a competitive shooter, I think that is solid, an instructor. I think that is solid advice to go compete. And don't make an excuse, well, because I can do this in this amount of time or whatever else, I don't have to compete. That's kind of just where I am right now. Like, no, you don't have to compete. But when they're stacking people up and people are shopping, like the consumer shopping, just understand that that's going to be one of those things they're probably going to look at, if not now, maybe at some point.
And I get it. And the reason I say compete, because I believe that it's going to create that deeper understanding.
That's what I mean.
But it's easy for me to go out and I can run who's ever drill, whatever, right? I'm the best shooter in the room because I'm out by myself. And I'm shooting. I'm like, oh, yeah, I crushed this drill. Okay, well.
On the 4th time you tried it.
Yeah, exactly.
The highlight reel.
10 time, whatever. Yeah. But I can go out there and I can just crush it by myself. When I never want to be the smartest person in the room, right? I never want to be the best. If you want to get better, you got to be around people that are better. So what I like about competitions, every time you go to a match, you're going to be around better shooters.
Yep.
Right? So being around better shooters is how you get better. And that's what I really like about the competition world. It's not that you can't get really good on your own. You can. Absolutely. When I first classified in IDPA, it was funny. I took one of my guys out when we were in the Army, and we're like, we're going to go shoot. Right? Well, you had our Glock 19, just standard Glock 19 or whatever, and they had a class fire that day. I'm like, oh, okay. So we shot the class fire, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm a master class shooter now.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just happened.
Yeah. But before that, we'd always go out and just shoot steel and run our own drills and stuff. But it happened, we go shoot this real match, and then got classified, and it was like, oh, okay. I think he classified as expert or something. And it was like, oh, okay, it's a Glock 19, you know? So you can get really good and stuff on your own, but I want you to understand, create that deep understanding as an instructor and understand the little nuances and understand just to see that little twitch in someone's hand and then know, oh, yeah,
I've been there.
That's your grip.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way you do that is from competing, because you're around people that are better than you all the time. Now, if you got a great group of friends and they're all better, well, sure, but you're only going to get to their level.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing. Like, you know, you're probably in the wrong room. If you're trying to get better and you're the best person, if you're the best in the room, you're in the wrong room. Find a different room.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, you know, but at the same time, it's like, so I practice with Hunter. When I do practice, I practice with Hunter. And Hunter, like, smokes me now,
He's
right?
a savage.
Yeah. But you want to know who he listens to? He always listens to me when I give him corrections. And vice versa. When he gives me a correction, I listen. I'm like, he's like, hey, this is what you're doing. Oh, okay. But when I'm like, hey, you're a better shooter than me, but hey, dude, this is what you're doing. He was like, oh, crap, you know? And he listens.
Yeah, he's humble. And he trusts you.
And he trusts me because he understands that I have accomplished a lot, especially when I was younger, but that I really don't shoot and stuff anymore. Like, it's a perishable skill. You have to be doing it all the time. And you know what? If I had unlimited funds and I didn't have to work and everything, right, my life would probably be a lot different, because I would just go shoot, and then I would just practice every day and get really good.
100%. I 100% understand that. Yeah,
that'd be a dream.
I'd be doing the same. Yeah.
So as an instructor, that's why I say that have the heart in the right direction. Gain that deeper understanding. You don't have to be the master class shooter, but you need to get good, right? And you need to be classified, and you know, just go out there with the right purpose. If you can help one person, that you helped one person.
Right.
It's not about helping thousands and thousands. Like, that's great. Like, I have no following on social media because I'm terrible at social media. I'm terrible at it, right? Raul wants to beat me because I won't get on social media and I don't do lives and I get weird with the camera. And, but it's like, if you can help one person, two people, like, that's awesome. You just help two people.
Right.
So,
take one step at a time.
Yeah. If you want to go get out there and you know what, hey, you got a pretty solid understanding of shooting and you want to start teaching, CCW or whatever. That's great. You want to teach fundamentals. That's great. Go for it.
Pick something. Just be really good at that.
Yeah. Just be good at it.
Yeah, man. I hear you, man. I tell you what, man, like, again, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to get from this today.
Me either.
But I sort of did. Like, I knew it was going to be good. I thought you did an outstanding job. That was just, well, the way you kind of walk people through that. I mean, again, like you said, you're not good at social media. I'm really not that either. If I didn't have a team helping me out, you wouldn't even see me there. Like, I'm horrible at it. So, but that said, like that's why I come out to have these conversations, because when I get a hunch about something, or when, you know, if I just kind of look at it beyond the social media, all the connection points, again, the people you've worked with, the things that you've done, the things that I have heard you say, and this comes out from outside your circle too, maybe people that have had interactions with you. You know, again, I try to check around. I don't just randomly pick people to be on the show. I'm looking for folks that I know can provide some level of value, or that I feel like can resonate and connect with listeners on the show. Not everybody will, but just, you said, like, I'm not trying to change the world. I'm not trying to make all the people happy all the time. It's impossible.
Well, it's funny. It's like, you know, Mike Pannone. Everyone knows Mike Pannone.
Everybody knows Mike Pannone.
We used to shoot together at Pima. You know, like, Nolan and I, he'd run up and, dude, check out this. Because he always has the new cool stuff. And I love the way Mike thinks, and just, I mean, he just goes hard in the paint. It's
crazy energy.
I see him out there shirtless, you know, carrying this freaking plate rack on his back, moving it. And I'm like, there's wheels, you know.
Yeah.
You can, like,
he makes us all look bad with how hard he works, man.
But shooting with him, and you know, it's just it's for a big community. It's still a smaller community.
Yep.
And if you don't know somebody, someone knows you. You know, someone's done something.
I think that's a solid point, man. Like, so if you have questions about somebody, you don't usually have to go very far to get some answers. That works both ways.
Yep.
Right? So it can either be very good for you, or it can be very bad for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, so I'm going to be shooting that accurized carbine on Saturday, right? Guess what I do the entire time? I'm out there. Every time I shoot, I'm a student. You know, I've learned stuff from shooters that were better than me, and I've learned stuff from shooters that weren't as good for me. I've seen, like, ways they practice or something they noticed, and I'm like,
taking value away from that.
Yeah, I just took value. So when I go out there Saturday, I'm going to be like, hey, why are you in that position instead of this position? All right? Because I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to improve.
Right.
And I think that's number one as an instructor, because I'll see a lot of guys. It's easy for them to get out there and be like, oh, like, I'm instructor.
Mm-hmm. Like, Man of the day.
Yeah, dude. Like, dude,
You're just a dude.
You're just a dude, man.
Right.
You know, just go out there and just do your part. Like, and so it's easy to have an ego, but you know, especially in shooting, egos are easily crushed.
It's obnoxious here too.
Oh, it's so annoying. And I'm not about the drama. I can care less about the drama. You look at our team posts, like if someone puts a negative comment on there, who cares?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like we look forward to seeing we look forward to seeing your YouTube video on it, or your reel on how it should be.
Yeah, I'm here, you're not. Like, yeah, man, I'm the same way. I give it zero oxygen.
Yeah.
You give it oxygen, it continues to burn. Just leave it alone. If you want to keep going on about it, cool. You're driving the algorithm, but I'm not getting involved.
I think I've literally seen Raul like say that to somebody. Like, thank you for helping the algorithm.
Yeah. We appreciate your contributions today. Well, that said, I think it's a good place to wrap up. I appreciate your contribution to my trip, to my journey through this whole thing. That's why I started the podcast, was, you know, to document my journey, and hopefully that would be helpful for people, so that they could hear these types of conversations with people that may not be, you know, all over social media with massive followings and things like that, but are contributing at a deep level in different types of ways.
Right.
So I appreciate your time and taking time out of here, driving all the way out here, spending your time, taking time away from your workout, family, the range, all the things that are important to you. This was important for me, and I appreciate it.
It's important to me too, because like I said, if it helps one person, then I just did my job as an instructor.
Right on.
You know, because if I say resonate with one person, and then I did my job. It's that simple.
Well, thanks for doing that today, man. I appreciate you. So, like, again, you're not big on social media, as you've self-proclaimed. But if people want to find out a little bit more about you, go find you, follow you, kind of see some of the things you're doing. And I highly encourage people to go see some of your shooting videos. If you like watching people that love to shoot and are really good at it do it, where do they go?
Well, so my Instagram's Dillon Ventske, Dillon Ventzke. So that's where you can get a hold of me. You can always DM me. I respond to everybody. But Hunter actually has a really cool YouTube video we did where we went through like practicing some drills, and we were doing doubles at 70 yards and stuff. He has a really good YouTube video, Hunter Constantine, to check out.
He's got a great channel, period. Yeah.
Don't judge. I was fatter then. I got my life together though. Started hitting a lot of cardio and weights.
Yeah, we missed Hunter on this trip. Busy, just timing didn't work out.
He's on the way to IPSC Nationals. Yeah.
Yeah, I made him promise me next time I'm through, we do it. Or he's got all the cool video, you know, and audio stuff at his house, so we may be able to pull off a remote one that's worth a shit, because I can't stand those. There's always glitches, and it bothers me that we're not in the same room because we don't get the same energy. But he's got a pretty good setup, so we might do that sooner than later.
Oh man, I'd want Hitman to be around, because if you just remind Hitman that Hunter left him at the airport.
Well, he's coming. Like I said before, Dan gave up the space today. He's coming in tomorrow, which I cannot wait to do. He's going to be the first pro fighter I've had on. So if you're hearing this before you hear the Dan Moret podcast, like, you're going to want to hear that one, because this dude is something.
Oh, he's incredible. I remember when we first started Rogue Methods, when Raul first started it. I was doing the class, and Dan was there demoing, helping, instructing. You know, and it's so crazy. Because it's like, this is a true pro. Like, I'm a bigger dude, and Dan just manhandled me, and it's like he was hitting nice. He was just doing a little hit, and oh my god, it hurts so freaking bad.
Yeah, you know when you're working with a pro.
As soon as he touched me, I'm like, oh, this is gonna hurt.
Yeah.
As soon as he put his hand around the back of my head, I'm like, oh my god,
in big trouble.
I'm so outclassed, outmatched.
You're in big trouble. Yeah, I think a lot of people listening to the show can relate to that. So yeah, I can't wait to have that conversation with him.
It's gonna be great.
Continue it here. So again, hey, Dillon, thanks so much for your time, man. I appreciate you. If there's anything I can do for you, to help you along your journey or support you, you got a friend here. I'm happy to do it. And for those out there listening, go check out Dillon on Dillon Ventske on Instagram. Check out some of those videos. Just for some real positive stuff. Yeah. Right? That's all you're going to ever get out of this guy. I think he's great. So thanks again for your time.
Negativity is no good. And thank you so much for having me on. Like, that's really cool. It's my first podcast. And it was just really cool. It's just a really cool experience and easy to talk to. And I was a little nervous about that, because I'm like, oh, I don't know this guy or anything like that. But
I get it.
You made the conversation just real easy to have and fun. And I think what you're doing is great. I really do, because
I appreciate that.
I think especially now, there's so many amazing instructors out there. So many people that valuable things to teach. So by you helping get the word out, is awesome. It really is.
I do appreciate that, man. Thank you for that acknowledgement. That's what we're trying to do here. And when I get compliments like that, the podcast game is kind of a weird deal just in terms of kind of the feedback that you get and don't get. So when I get to sit down with people and they give me details like that, it's very helpful. So I appreciate that, man. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Scott. You're awesome.